adopted sons. We're going to show a short video, and then we'll talk about her ladyship. So here we are to celebrate the life and loves of the witch of Madison Avenue, as she'd like to be called. She was born on October 31st, and she loved to get out there on her birthday with her witch's hat and her orange boa and voiced her vodka. I'm not even sure when I met Roz. I've known her for at least 30 years. As I said, one of her adopted sons with Barry Ross, Lance Whitaker, and Jim Zenman. And I have some words from them that I'll read a little bit later. I do know that I felt that I had really made it in the industry as a young person when I was invited to Roz's cruise, which I'm sure a lot of you remember. There was some rather boozy shots of that on the video. We became especially close after Harold passed away, and I loved her. She was a great lady. Indomitable spirit, pain in the ass, never held back with her remarks. But she was also inspirational to so many people in this industry, young people and old people alike, and I'm sure everyone here was inspired by her at some point or another. So I'm going to keep my remarks very, very short. I'm going to turn the mic over to Camille Block.
Well, thank you everyone for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. I think Roz will be very happy that it came out in the weather. I got a lot of phone calls about, are you still doing it? I'm like, of course. Roz wouldn't have it any other way. So I want to thank Walter and Gary for being my co-chairs in this project. We've been working on it for about 2 months now. Gary could not be here, so Curtis is here, his lovely wife. And thanks to Karen Koopman for helping get it all together. So there are a few things that Roz would always say to me, and I call them Roz-isms. I don't go to New Jersey. Don't even talk about it. Camille, just pick up the phone and call Ray. How's your fella? Because he could never remember my husband's name, Mark. And then, I don't eat dinner until 10. So, what's the problem? And my best is, you can say whatever you want, but I'll do it my way. So it's a great privilege in life to love what you do, and Roz loved what she did. She called me her blonde angel, but she was the angel all these years. She was involved with both clubs. She exemplified her dedication and passion. With the Underfashion Club, it was all about the students. But with Project Help Us Give, her very first love, it was all about the kids. Whenever we raised money, it was for the children. She had a great, big heart. Thank you, Roz. I miss you so much.
So I'll just say one more thing. Well, I'll say a few more things. I have a funny vodka story. Rosina, she wound up in a nursing home for a few days when all this was happening, and she insisted on still having her vodka. And Rosina, so whenever anybody came to visit, bring me one of those little airplane bottles of vodka. Rosina brought her some and put them in the trash can for some reason. Yes?
I didn't put them in the trash. Somebody else did.
Okay, somebody else put them in the trash can.
I put them in a purse.
And of course the staff at the nursing home, when they were emptying the trash cans, found Roz's vodka, and there was a little bit of a scene.
It was in a water bottle.
It was a water bottle.
And Gary would bring the water bottle, fill it with vodka.
Okay. And I saw Roz, I moved to Washington recently, and just a couple days before I left, I saw Roz. She was in bed, she could barely lift her head, but she insisted that we have a vodka together, and I will always treasure that vodka. I have a few testimonials to read, and I know some people want to get up here and have their words about the witch. Let's see, Alan Albert, who I hope most of you remember, is retired, living in Florida. He says, "I'm sorry I could not be with you tonight. I first met Roz in the 1950s. Roz was always there helping people, and she will love you, Roz." Next, I'd like to read some words from her niece, Ava, who during the last months of her life was very instrumental in getting Roz's life organized, which she kept putting off and kept denying that she needed a will, she needed, all that kind of stuff. And Ava came in at the last minute, swooped in, and got her all set up, and really, it was so touching the way she and Roz worked together, and the way that Ava stepped up to help Roz out. So Ava lives in California and was not able to make it this evening. Oh, Ava, she's on. Hi, Ava. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. How do you do that? Don't sound anyway. I miss the delighted smile Roz gave me when she found something you said or something she said to be really funny. My last and favorite memory of her was her flashing me one of those smiles from her bed. Roz was, by all accounts, a New York original, not just a Manhattanite, but an East Side girl who lived in her 40 East 9th Street apartment for 51 years. She was the second customer at the 2nd Avenue Deli, and I was told by their accountant, Bella, the only person in all of Manhattan who they still took checks from. Definitely the end of an era. Roz was the last of the old-timers in my family, the last of her generation. I was blessed to know so many of them for so long. Roz never came for holidays in New Jersey, where I grew up. You're not surprised. But she always happy to hang out together in Manhattan. I've been hanging out with Roz since 1996, when I was 16 and starting to develop my own ideas about where my life and curiosity might take me. My Nana thought it would be good for me to connect with her designer cousin who had really made a name for herself in New York. The further I advanced my career, the more I appreciated Roz's stories and examples of how to be a boss woman in a man's industry. Wow. Be yourself. Tell the truth. Stick up for what you think is right. I love the example she set as a mentor, a fundraiser, and someone who helped set up an enduring infrastructure to support women's advancement in her industry. Roz was fierce and tender. From what I've heard and experienced, a total pain in the ass. Does anyone in this room agree to that? With love, of course. And I lost my place. But the best kind. Maybe Roz was the Steve Jobs of Roz. In any event, you're here because Roz made her mark on your life. You were tough and tender enough to be her friend. You got to keep her wisdom close to you and pass it on to others. Roz lived so long, so well, and so happily because of all of you. You helped her party always and had the gift of so much time together. Thank you for being Roz's friends, her neighbors, her colleagues, and her chosen family. Oh, I don't have a vodka in my hands, but right now we're supposed to toast to the fabulous Roz Lance's. so much. Okay, Lori Ahern. Lori didn't make that, excuse me. Jean Chris. Okay. Michael Drescher.
I'm here.
Mr. Drescher.
Walter.
Hello, sir.
Welcome to me, I guess, but thank you very much. And Walter, I'm kind of an outlier. I'm a California guy, and I've heard this gentleman's name so many times, so many of you. And years ago, I'm more from, more of an entertainment industry guy, but I was compelled to look into healthy intimates, and we're still looking into it. But Roslyn, I was given her name by Jim Robbins, and I called her up. This was about 14 years ago, and it amplifies everything you're saying. And I didn't know what to say. I thought, well, I had an idea, and she said, honey, are you a bra designer? I said, no, I'm not. And she said, you live in Los Angeles? I said, yes, I do. She said, well, I'm 82. And it sounds like you have a dream. And I have my own dreams. So why don't you go find someone in LA to tell your dream to? And goodbye. And we were done. And then I thought, I have to know this woman because she's going to tell me the truth. So I called Robbins back and he said, oh yeah, she can be a little... And so he said, but she's into these organizations. So I called her back. I said, don't hang up. It turns out we're going to lunch. She goes, and she said, what? And I said, I'm bringing $2,000 for, I think, hugs. And she said, sorry, fuck. Just like that. And then she said, did you say 5,000? I'm not kidding. And this made me want to meet her more. And I said, I might have said 3, but that's dinner. And she said, okay, but when? I said, well, I'll be there next week. She said, well, it gets here before you do. Okay? And she said, no, don't be stupid. Don't put it in the mail. Just when you walk in, that's at the end of your fingers. Okay? And it was like, and there it started. And then from there, we went on this adventure. And the most amazing lady who taught me so much, and after a few years, she said, well, honey, I make brassieres. We need to go do something else here. We need to, and opened up her heart, her mind, and she's an interesting lady. Oh my God, right? And always being that kind of outlier, to come in, come out. And I was really fortunate. I've been over to, as we all know, the Knickerbocker, right? We know the Knickerbocker. Oh, that's family over there. And I was fortunate enough in the last month, I think in November, mid-November, Roz and I had our final vodka together. And I brought over the food from the Nick as she ordered it. And she was dressed like Sergeant Pepper. And she made sure, and her 5th or 7th rotation of 24-hour nurses that have quit and come back were there. And we had the most marvelous dinner, and she had some vodkas. And I'll leave you with a couple of things. She said to me, and I have this on video, but but the point is, it's just Roz, and you know it in her voice. She said, the reason I live this long is because when I was young, I listened to my father, and I said no to boys. And I got older, I listened to myself, and I said no to doctors. He said, if I listened to doctors, I would have been dead 15 years ago. So I'm so blessed to be part of this, and Walter and the group, you guys have been there forever. She's been such a blessing and such an education for what we are trying to achieve. Believe me, her knowledge of the industry, and she could speak it in both ways, and always very political. She was always very safe. But God bless this woman, and you know what she loved more than anything was people, interaction. She didn't see anything but humanity. That third generation Manhattan woman just came through all the time. And her feeling and her compassion for these two clubs is amazing. And to see you come together tonight for her is just, I'm sure she's gleaming and wanting to dance hard. So God bless you all, and thank you.
Oh, gosh, a vodka. Ladies and gentlemen, to Roz. Oh, gee. Okay, this is from Roberta Bonifacio. I wish I could be there celebrating with you and your chutzpah. Right until the very end, you were asking my mom and I about fabric. Laugh out loud, she says, I feel very blessed to have met and worked with you. But most important, you became a true friend. I wish we lived closer instead of on opposite coasts. I find myself picking up the phone to call you quite often. And when I'm running to talk to you and seek your advice, I am certain you're giving them all hell up there and enjoying your cocktails. Love and miss you, Roberta. Debbie Gedney, are you here? No. Holly Doran? Holly. Hello.
I knew Roz many years. She was such a delight. I was a writer for the Intimate Apparel News, Mills paper, and I once did a wonderful profile on her. Of course, she had a lot to say about it, like I should have added this or done that. But then when she got these wonderful reactions from people in the market, she thought, oh, you're terrific! All of a sudden, she thought it was great. Anyway, one day she had a very human side. She came over to my apartment wearing that wonderful witch's hat. I think Eleanor Cohen was with her too. And she came in with that. It was Halloween. And I had a list of children from the building who were coming to visit. She said, I'm staying. Well, these children came in. They were absolutely ecstatic that a witch was in my apartment. And they spoke about it because I would meet them in the elevator other times as they grew. They'd always remember that, about how funny she was and how delightful she was with children. She had such a great heart, and I really am so privileged to have known her.
Thank you, Colin. Yeah, she loved kids. She threw up that Halloween party for the children in her building for every year that she lived there. Amazing. And that makes me think of one story she used to tell when she was a kid and she went to, I don't remember the name of the high school, but it was like the Homemakers Girls School or something like that in Brooklyn. It was across the street from the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, and they used to have bombing drills during World War II. And she used to tell that when they did that, the whole school would go across the street to the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, and they would hide in the Japanese garden because they knew the Japanese would not bomb that garden. Correct deal. All right, this is from her dear friend and our dear friend Rosa Chamonix. I'm honored to call Rosa my love, friend, mentor, and treasure. Her generosity, talent, hard work, and love for our industry made her an icon. Back in 1966, when I had my first job as a young designer at Flair Lingerie, wow, Roz took me to lunch at the New York Hilton and gave me her How to Be a Designer speech. I already know you have talent, but you also must have attitude, smarts, strength, and power. Wow. With just one lunch, Roz inspired me with her life's code, and I tried to apply her advice wherever I could. But Roz also told me to keep people waiting. something I just couldn't do. Oh man. Okay. Can we talk about that for a second? Never. I'm only on time for planes and trains and boats. Like, really? How many times that we had lunch scheduled and I'd be sitting there for an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half, right? Horrible. But okay, we loved her enough that we put up with that, I suppose. Was Roz feisty, arrogant, and disruptive? Yes, yes, and yes. But for the ones that know and love her, her heart was warm enough to melt the largest iceberg. Our industry will miss her terribly, and I will treasure all the wonderful memories she created for me personally. Roz, I will hold you forever in my heart, and I know Harold and you are resting in God's loving arms. Craig and I love you very much. Till we meet again, Rosa. Norma Mascarati. Norma. Yes.
My friendship with Roz over many years was hot and cold, but always warm. Roz, the go-to and get person. No one ever said no to Roz. Nobody that I can remember. Roz, the innovator, helped start my buyer career. Kids sleepwear in lilac, peach, and mint. No boring pink and blue for Roz. I remember that. One day, this past year, while walking across town with Roz, she put her hand on my arm for help. This totally threw me. Roz didn't ask for help. Summing up, Roz was a tough broad with a heart of gold, and I'll miss her. Thank you.
Another industry icon. This is from Dan Rosenbaum, a cousin of Roz's. From 1975 to her death, we were separated geographically by 3,000 miles. For the past 15 years, we remained in fairly close contact by phone and my infrequent trips to the Big Apple. Roz never accepted the computer, so we didn't communicate by email. Come on. Must be a phone call. No emails. Anyway, Roz spoke of her love and deep commitment to her industry, the Underfashion Club and the students at the Fashion Institute. Roz's expressions of love for all three helped to replace the love that she would have given to the children that she was unable to have, and also to her younger brother Jack and husband Harold, who died at an early age. My happiest memory of Roz was when she floated onto the stage of the 2014 FEMMY Gala when she was honored for her service to the industry, the Underfashion Club, and the Fashion Institute. Thank you all for sharing your caring and love for my cousin, Roz Harte. I'm sorry, Lita. I apologize, Lita.
So I'm Lita Orsak, and I'm here with Gail Epstein. We are hanky-panky. And Roz told us a story very, very recently, I think it was last year or maybe the year before, that Gail and I wanted to...
Hold on. Hold, please.
Everybody okay?
We'll get over that too. So Roz told us a story last year, the year before, that we wanted to publish in our phone diaries, which appears on our website, handypandy.com. And of course, you know, there's a lot of phone calls and some USPS mail to her to get her approval for the story, but she didn't want us to use her name. We could barely identify her in any way, but we published it. So we published it differently, and now I'll read you the real story. So one day, Roz is allowing herself the treat of a professional house cleaner rather than doing all the tidying up herself. The service was good, but the next day, when Roz was getting dressed, she discovered that there was a big space in her lingerie drawer where all of her hanky-panky thongs used to be. Since Roz only wore gem-toned colors, you might see where this is leading, like ruby and amethyst and sapphire, you could say her small indulgence turned into a major jewel heist.
She swore by her thoughts. Absolutely. Yep. One of the times she fell and was in the hospital, she blamed the nursing staff for losing her red thong. She was very upset about that. And then, unfortunately, she realized when she got back home that it was in the couch. I'll just leave that there. Okay, this is from Barry Ross, another one of her adopted sons, living in Florida. I've always known Roz, or should I say, she always knew me. Due to her friendship with my father, Roz met me, as she enjoyed saying, when I was in my short pants. She took pleasure in telling me more than once that visiting my parents' home and seeing how my brother and I interacted made her and Harold think twice about having children. Yet, to me and several others, Roz was a surrogate mother. Okay, a bit more demanding and intolerant than one's own mother might be, but I never doubted her concern for me and my family. Through our mutual involvement in the Underfashion Club and the Hug, Roz and I worked closely together for many years. When she would call me and begin by saying, "Mr. Ross," I knew I was in trouble. After 10 minutes or so of her monologue, I would say, "Mrs. Harte, may I speak now?" She invariably listened and sometimes even agreed with me. Roz was certainly tough, but she was always open to changing her mind if you gave her sufficient reason, because above all else, Roz wanted to succeed at whatever she was doing. Making a difference in the world was of utmost importance to Roz. Whether it was helping the kids at the Rusk Institute, the students at FIT, or the High School of Fashion Industries, and anyone whom she liked, she strove to make her mark on the world. No one who knew her would doubt that she did. An independent, opinionated woman who was successful in a male-dominated industry. A woman who took no nonsense from anyone. A woman who doted on her husband. I have to go home and cook Harold's dinner. A woman of indomitable spirit and limitless perseverance with a take-no-prisoners attitude. A good friend, but don't make her angry. A woman who always lived her way. Roz was this and much more. If Roz could hear these words, I think she would agree with me. I love and miss you, Mama Roz. Melanie Flaum? Okay, I pronounced that right. Who is a neighbor of Roz's.
Bringing my family might come up too, because we were really Roz's family in a lot of ways. Emma, my daughter, Lilac only had one grandmother and biological, and so Roz was definitely her other grandmother.
Yeah.
You wanted to say something?
I actually wanted to say, first off, I'm probably one of the few people in here who has never had the pleasure of having a vodka with her. But But to me, Mrs. Harte was definitely like a grandmother, and the last memory I have of her was actually of telling her that I saw her as another grandma, and yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
What did you want? This is my husband.
I just have one quick story about Roz. We moved in to 40 East 9th Street 15 years ago. My mom had just passed away. A little bit after that, Roz became a surrogate mother to me and a surrogate grandma to Lilac. And the best neighbor anyone could ask for, it wasn't a neighbor, it was a family member living across the hall. And it was just, it was such a warmth that she brought to us as new people in the building. This lasted for years and years, and I just have one story I want to tell you. Towards the end, when she wasn't doing so well, she had taken a fall in the building. And we had to go in, we called the EMTs were there, and she was a little shaken up, as anyone would be after they take a fall. So the EMTs were asking her a series of questions, and the first one was, what's today's date? And she was looking and said, I don't know, September, I'm not sure, October? I said, okay, it's close enough. And then they said, what year is it? And I think she said 2012, 13. And then I said, oh, Roz, come on, you gotta get it right. And then they said, who's the president? And she stared at the EMT, she was looking at him, and I said, Roz, you gotta get it. And she said, that idiot. That's Roz, that's it.
Yeah, I saw her go through those interviews every time, and I was waiting for the who's the president question. She always had a really good answer. But actually later that evening, as she got a little better, and she's like, I know tomorrow's Valentine's Day, so today's the 13th. Like, she could always figure out her way out of any problem. And that was definitely a thing with her. And I just want to say, like, I think one of the things she gave to us, and that she gave to a lot of people, are our connections with other people. In the last 6 months to a year, when things were going badly, I became so close to Rosina and Mary Beth and her cousin Ava, and like just all the people in her life that have helped her so much, and that was a gift she gave to, I think, a lot of us. So that's all.
Thank you so much. This is from Glenn Schneer. Roslyn was a very special person and an icon in the intimate apparel industry. Roslyn was a very warm person, and whenever I would attend any club meeting, she would always come over and say hello to me and see how I was doing. I was always amazed at the energy she had over the many years and admired how meticulous she was on planning so many wonderful events for the industry. I would like to conclude with the following quote by Herman Cain. Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you love what you're doing, you will be successful. I truly believe that Roslyn loved to work in this industry, and we loved her, and we will miss her dearly. Just as another remark, you know, I was with her one time when she was being transferred from the hospital to the nursing home, and when they got to the nursing home, you know, they were asking her a lot of questions about you know, her health and her weight and all that kind of stuff. She's like, I kick ass, so watch out, and I kick balls too. That's Roz. All right, this is from Lance Whitaker, her another adopted son. I have known Roz for over 35 years. She was always fiercely independent and passionate. She worked tirelessly for the organization she believed in, like the Hug, supporting Rust, and the Underfashion Club, which provides funding for intimate apparel education. Most of you know her work history and all the help and support she provided to the new and old members of the intimate apparel industry. I gotta say, she was always so open and willing to help those coming into the industry, and she was not one of those people who held her knowledge closely. She shared it willingly, and I think that was a beautiful thing. Roz lived life on her own terms, sometimes to her detriment, but always with conviction. She enjoyed vodka, hated water, I only bathed in it, she used to say, and enjoyed spending many hours at the flower shop, the 2nd Avenue Deli, and of course Knickerbockers. She would always be available for you. She would meet you, always an hour late, but would be there to listen. To spend time with her was a joy, mostly, and, and to be her friend, a true honor. As a friend, she would defend you unquestionably and give advice, whether you asked for it or not. She will certainly be sorely missed for all that knew her. She was very influential in my life, and I greatly miss her already. I recently got married, and I called Roz to tell her I was getting married. You know, blah, 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 put the phone down. 10 minutes later, she called, "This is what I think you should wear." And you know what? That's what we wore. Okay, Rita Lant. No. Andrew's not here. Paula Welch. No? Okay. This is from Jim Zenman, the last of the 4 adopted sons. In honor of a great friend, a great designer, and a huge supporter of the intimate apparel industry, I want to say a few words about Roslyn Lance's heart. Roz, as her friends called her, was unique and without question her own person. She had a hard exterior, but a soft heart. She was a mentor to me and countless designers during her long and productive career. She rubbed many people the wrong way, and yet she persisted. In an era where political correctness had become the curtain behind which many of us hid, Roz spoke her mind. Regardless of the people who disliked her personally, no one could denigrate her talent and devotion. Roz was a genuine person in all aspects of her life, from her support of the sisters at the local church to her tireless work for the Underfashion Club's board and many committees. She was always there. As part of the Square Club, now known as Project Help Us Give, she worked diligently and tirelessly to raise funds for the Rusk Institute on behalf of its pediatric patients. Even if she liked you, she was still tough on you. I know personally how abrasive she could be, all in an effort to force me to be the best I could be. She gave me an opportunity to make a lace for Vanity Fair that took several months for me to get right. Jim Salmon was from Salmon Laces, a company unfortunately no longer with us. She stayed with me to make it work. When BF adopted it, they ran the lace with me for more than 15 years. She knew what she was doing and let you know it, and I loved her for it. I don't know or remember much about her early years in the industry, but in all the time I knew her, she had her own studio. It takes a tough person to be independent and still run a successful business. We talked often about the hardships she faced in between projects. Despite the ups and downs, she survived in an industry dominated by men and helped pave the way for many women to succeed. In her later years, as consolidations and takeovers created less and less independent lingerie companies, work became much harder to find. Yet she managed to continue on. Many times her friends would give her leads, projects, even studio space, so she could pay her bills. It is these strong friendships that are her true legacy. She never had children, but I was blessed to be considered one of her own. I have been out of the industry for many years now and had still stayed in touch with her. She was one of a kind, and I will miss her. Okay, so Alexandra's not here, but she did send something to read. Please accept my deepest apologies for not being able to attend this important event celebrating the life of a most unique and special colleague and intimate apparel industry professional. I had the highest regard for Roslyn Harte. It was an honor to know her and to work with her. her tireless service to the intimate apparel industry, and the students at FIT will always be cherished and remembered. Tina Wilson.
Okay, I have to tell this story before the martini wears off. And it's iffy if I should even be saying this, but anyway. So about 5, 6, 7 years ago, how long ago, Walter? Roz, Walter, Gloria Schaffner, and myself made a road trip to visit Alan Fisher. So we get on a train, and there's Alan and Michelle waiting to pick us up. So the three of us pile in the back. Me, Walter, and Gloria, we pile in the back of the car. And Roz sits in the front next to Alan. So he tries to buckle her into the seatbelt. But it's not working. So he's, Roz, just stick it in, just stick it in. And she's like, I can't stick it in. It's going back and forth. So I go, hey Roz, when's the last time you heard those words? And she looked at me and she goes, the 70s?
All right, so thanks for sharing that little tidbit. Typical. Okay, so this is Carol Hockman also said something to read since she couldn't be here. Roslyn Harte was quite an amazing woman who made every day of her life matter. She was different than anyone, but she was respected and admired. She didn't have an easy life, but she lived like the queen of our industry. I miss her. This is from Rita Lant. You will always be remembered by me and the many young people you have mentored. You made a difference in my life. You taught me the basics as a designer and gave me a foundation in the garment industry that I could build upon. Thank you, Roz. Love you, Roz. Oh, okay. Andrew. One can describe Roslyn as someone who is witty, energetic, knowledgeable, passionate, and opinionated, with a great ability to win people over. We've spent decades with her. She is somewhere bending the minds of another group of people. It will take them a while to figure her out. Oh man. Paul Welch. I did not know Roz as long as many others that are contributing to her celebration of life. However, the impact she made on me was astounding. I had no idea of what I was getting into when I ventured into the lingerie world. But she was quick to lay it all out bluntly and matter-of-factly. She was never shy to share the wealth of information and never shy about being blunt. She couldn't help but admire the knowledge in her. You couldn't help but admire her knowledge and her energy. That was the kicker, really, her energy. And what she had survived, yet propelled like the Energizer Bunny. The other thing that always stood out was her propensity for being on the leading edge. Regardless of her age, she was one step ahead of what was on trend and saw it well before its time. She knew what would be in and what wouldn't last and what was on the way out. I absolutely adored her in her insight. There was only one Roz, and I am thankful for every moment I had to get to know her, and I know the industry is thankful for the legacy that she leaves behind. Would anyone else like to, yes. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Dorothy Gallagher.
Roz. Wow. I started working with Roz Harte, I think it was Lily of France, too many years ago to mention. She was doing the Gloria Vanderbilt line, sleepwear line, and I was her model. And I continued to be her model for many, many, many years. Maiden Form, Vanity Fair, she worked for her own loungewear line, on and on. I finally learned to make her my last appointment for the day. Because she had a slight problem getting to her studio at the appointed time. So inevitably it would be the end of the day. And after our fitting, we had them, sometimes we worked 5 nights a week. And we would, after the fitting, we'd sit and have discussions over a few vodkas, of course. And a lot of the discussions were about religion. And she made me the kosher shiksa I am today. And I thank her for that. And any time I fit with her, every single time, she would say, wait a minute, I'll leave with you. I'll walk out with you, that's what she'd say. And of course I waited, half hour, 40 minutes. Then we get downstairs and she'd walk the opposite way. And I said, what the hell? You know, it took me 30 years to figure out, I think she just liked company at the end of the day, you know. But, oh my God, I loved her very, very much. She was a feminist. She believed in the empowerment of women many, many years before they became, you know, obvious endeavors. And she also, she was a giant among us, and with this tiny little body, you know. And she was tough, she was feisty, but her name wasn't Roslyn Harte for nothing. She had a heart that was huge. She helped so many people in our industry, including myself. Professionally and personally, she is really, truly missed. And Roz, you're in our hearts until we can keep you company upstairs. Thank you.
Anybody else have something to say? I see somebody pointing over here. Come on.
Hello, I'm a Spellman. I'm a photographer in the industry. And the first time that I met Roz, we had this big party, and so I was in charge of making the appetizers. And I'll never forget, she has her wine, and everyone's kind of like, make sure she doesn't drink too much wine, she's got to get home on the subway, and she's, you know, Roz. So every time no one's looking, she goes over and she's like, where's the bottle? And she's like pouring herself more wine. And I'm like, I'll pretend I'm not seeing, it's okay, you know. And I'll never forget, she's like, who's in charge of the appetizers? Who cooked these apps? I was like, it was me. And she's like, you know, if you're a cook, if you can cook, then you can make love. I showed it, and I was like pretty young, and I'm like, oh, okay, great, this is Roz, I love it. So yeah, it was just a fun little moment, and she was so beautiful, so yeah.
Michael?
I'm back. It's just a last, hi again, Walter, thank you. Walter spoke of her niece, Ava, and a pretty remarkable lady, which I know the folks over at the house got to know. And as Walter said, she read, really inspired her. Well, the reason she can't be here tonight, this woman is in charge of really rebooting the entire Google campus, seriously. Like, you read into her history and what she's done and who she does it for, creating a sense of community and the inspiration. So she was just wanting to know that she's texted me and wanted to make sure that a few people were thanked. Because she's been watching this on Google Loop, because that's where we live today. So God bless, and she just wanted to make sure it's pretty much all the folks at the house. Okay, here we go. It's Helen Ketcher, Mike and Melanie, Gary Hughes, Walter Costello, Sammy Stitt, Mary, Beth, and these are probably Roslyn's words for sure. Rosalind Feta, Eileen Cohn, Camille Block, Team Roz, and everyone that's here tonight. And so, you know, just God bless. And she said, endless, bottomless vodka OJs.
Thanks, Ava. Awesome. You know, she always, Roz, a lot of times she would walk around with a glass of ice and you know, try and pretend that, oh, I'm just drinking some water, you know. Of course, it was full of vodka. Mary Beth, Rosina, you want to say something?
Mary Beth and I became sisters with Roz. When I first met Roz, I had just lost my job. I knew Roz because we worked in the same building. And so then I decided I wasn't going to stay in the industry. But Rosa suggested that I call Roz because I decided to go back to school and maybe she could give me some work. And so, very much like Michael Drescher, I called and she said, I introduced myself and da-da-da-da-da. She said, I don't have time for you, click. That was it. And I thought, okay, I'll have to go some. But she called, maybe it was an hour later, or maybe the next day, and she explained that she was going through a hard time. She had just received some bad news, and would I come up and talk to her? And then it was a love affair after that. I could, as many people have said, I could never say no to her. I had decided to go back to school, and I was working for her, and my schedule was flexible, so I go into her studio, and she said, well, come in, we have to make a pattern. Okay, so we'd make a pattern. But we wouldn't start on the pattern until 8 o'clock, and then I still had to go do my homework. I said, Roz, no. 10 o'clock, well, let's have a drink. And then we go. But, as many have said, she had a heart of gold. There's a saying in my dialect, I won't say it in my dialect, that whatever we saw above ground, there was 2 times as much underground. She was just a wonderful human being.
Yes, Rosie and I are the adopted daughters. You heard the adopted sons. We are the adopted daughters. And I only want to add something else that no one else has said about Roslyn. She was able to accept everyone. Didn't matter your age, your gender, your sexual orientation. I came from a Roman Catholic family. I'm the 5th of 10 children, and she was very accepting of that. So it didn't matter your religion, what your occupation was, she was accepting of everybody. Tough on us.
Yes.
She would never let me forget that I was originally born in Kansas, so I was not a New Yorker. So even after 30-some years, I would get a little testy when she would tell me that. But anyway, we will miss her very much.
Thank you, ladies. Anyone else? Okay. I'd like to get everybody together over here, and so we can get a group shot. And if you don't have a glass of vodka, maybe you could get one, or pretend you have one. And we'll have one last toast to Roz. And with love and admiration, we say goodbye to our dear, dear friend, Roz.